Everyone's been waiting on LeBron, and the theory going around was simple. Wait for the World Cup to end, no distractions, and he'll get the entire spotlight to finally make his decision. Made sense on paper. Then, sure enough, a wave of random predictions started flooding social media. But the one that actually broke through came from a former Lakers teammate, Patrick Beverley, who posted out of nowhere that rumor had it LeBron would make his decision that same day. That single tweet pulled in 3.1 million views. It's coming, everyone said, except it wasn't. LeBron's own camp, through agent Rich Paul, made it clear they weren't going to be rushed. This is his choice to make, and when he makes it, he'll make it. Shams Charania went even further, reporting directly from a conversation with Paul that there's no decision made and no real timetable either. No timetable. Think about that for a second. LeBron arguably has one of the highest basketball IQs the league has ever seen. He knows exactly what every possible roster fit looks like. So what's actually taking this long? Commissioner Adam Silver has publicly admitted the NBA literally can't finalize its own schedule. Opening night, Christmas Day games, none of it, without knowing where LeBron's going to be playing. So is he just enjoying the attention? A 41-year-old soaking up the entire league revolving around him? Rich Paul says flatly, no. In his words, it's important people understand this isn't about attention or spectacle, it's a real business decision. Saying LeBron just wants attention is, in Paul's words, the lowest hanging fruit take when you simply don't have the actual information. Which raises the obvious question. What information are we actually missing here? Because clearly there's something LeBron needs resolved before he's ready to commit. Let's actually look at how the roster logic plays out, team by team, because on paper, several of these make real sense. If Minnesota's out of the running, the strongest overall roster fit is arguably Philadelphia. The Sixers already have 3 all-star level starters in Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, plus a promising young piece in VJ Edgecombe, and they've quietly had a solid offseason adding depth pieces like Dean Wade, meaning Embiid wouldn't have to shoulder a full 82-game workload. LeBron would also get enormous credit for winning there, since Philadelphia hasn't won a championship since 1983, a smaller-scale version of the ending a curse narrative, similar to what just played out in New York, except that particular story is no longer available since the Knicks already won it. If it's about chemistry, Golden State makes real sense too. LeBron looked genuinely great playing alongside Steph Curry at the Olympics, and he's personally close with Draymond Green, who covers a ton defensively. The obvious criticism, that he'd essentially be joining a team that finished as a 10 seed last season, gets thrown around a lot, even though in context that's a fairly unfair way to frame it. If defense and a real shot at legacy building credit matter most, Miami checks real boxes too, pairing him with 2 elite two-way players in Giannis and Adebayo, plus his existing familiarity with that organization. But nothing beats Cleveland on pure familiarity. It's literally his hometown. The real issue there might be the roster itself, and that might genuinely be part of the missing information everyone's speculating about. What if LeBron is quietly pressuring teams to make last-minute roster moves before he commits, starting with trading James Harden out of Cleveland? Harden at this stage would likely be a rough fit next to LeBron, aging, defensively limited, historically shaky in the playoffs, and needing the ball in his hands constantly, essentially a second version of a ball-dominant guard who doesn't play well off the ball. Pairing 2 players who both need heavy usage to be effective rarely works cleanly, and LeBron has been through enough ball-dominant pairings across his career to know exactly what that friction looks like before it even happens. It's entirely plausible LeBron would consider going home, but only if Cleveland finds Harden a new home first. Or maybe the pressure's actually pointed at Golden State instead, specifically toward finally landing Anthony Davis. LeBron's well-documented fondness for Davis is real. He was reportedly upset when Davis was traded away in the deal that brought in a young Luka Doncic. But Washington knows exactly how much leverage they're holding here. Their reported asking price to actually move Davis to Golden State: Jimmy Butler, 2 first-round picks, 2 pick swaps, and 2 second-rounders. That's an aggressive ask for a player who cost them relatively little to acquire in the first place, but Washington clearly knows they're the ones controlling this negotiation. If you're new here, we cut through exactly this kind of noise every week, real reporting versus reactionary takes. Hit subscribe so you catch the next update, because this story is genuinely unpredictable right now. Then Shams dropped a report suggesting Golden State is basically out of the race entirely, with LeBron's real focus reportedly narrowing to Miami, Cleveland, and Philadelphia, all Eastern Conference teams that would offer an easier overall path to a title. But here's the thing, that could all just be a smokescreen too, because genuinely nobody, including Shams himself, actually knows what LeBron is thinking. Case in point, almost immediately after that report, breaking news alerts started flying claiming Miami and Cleveland were suddenly neck and neck, a genuine two-team race. Based on what exactly? How do these odds keep flipping this dramatically if nobody actually has real information? Walk through the actual sequence and it gets almost comedic. On June 28th, right before LeBron's Lakers exit became official, Cleveland led the odds, since everyone assumed a hometown return. Then Golden State jumped to number 1 because Draymond Green declined his player option, and rumors started swirling about a possible Anthony Davis trade. 3 days later, on July 2nd, Cleveland retook the lead because Washington said no to that Davis trade, and Rich Paul's podcast Whiteboard aired publicly, visually placing Golden State off in a corner. That same whiteboard boosted Philadelphia to second place by July 4th, based entirely on where a marker landed during a podcast segment. Then, somehow, Golden State jumped all the way back to first place on July 16th, and the reason is almost too absurd to believe. A random fan filmed Steve Kerr at a stoplight saying something like, "We need to get LeBron, man," followed by, "We got him," which, on closer listening, actually meant the opposite. They didn't have him yet. 2 days after that clip circulated, Miami suddenly took a massive lead over everyone else, because ESPN's Brian Windhorst said the more he'd looked into it, the more Miami made sense to him. Sounds significant until you hear his actual full quote, where he specifically said up front that he had no real insight and no real information, but that Miami simply made sense to him personally. That's the entire basis for an alleged massive lead. This entire cycle has been genuinely ridiculous. Alert after alert claiming Miami's the favorite, or sources confirming the Heat, Sixers, and Cavaliers are all realistic locks. Shams says Golden State is out 1 week, and they could just as easily be back in first place by the following morning. None of it actually means anything concrete. At this point, the only two people who genuinely know what's happening are almost certainly LeBron himself and his wife, Savannah. Even Rich Paul probably isn't fully in that inner circle at this exact moment, not because of any real distrust, but simply because LeBron knows Paul runs his own podcast, and there's always a chance something slips out unintentionally during a casual conversation. But amid all that noise, we did actually learn something concrete and real, this time specifically about Bronny. His situation isn't being treated as an automatic package deal tied to his father, though it's still genuinely unclear whether it will be. What we do know for certain is the Lakers just signed Matisse Thybulle, a real verified move. Thybulle is a two-time all-defensive selection, and the Lakers desperately needed more perimeter defense to pair around Walker Kessler on the interior. If Thybulle can also knock down open shots consistently this season, this could end up being a genuinely excellent value signing by Rob Pelinka. Here's the problem it creates for Bronny specifically though. That signing pushes the Lakers roster to 16 total players, and NBA rules cap teams at 15 once the regular season officially begins. Someone has to go. It could end up being Dalton Knecht, who's struggled to find consistent footing so far in his young career, but it also cracks the door open for Bronny to potentially land wherever his father eventually signs, whenever that decision actually happens, especially given there's still no real timetable attached to any of this. It's also worth being honest about what's actually at stake for Golden State, specifically if this doesn't work out. Their situation is genuinely rough if LeBron passes on them. They've swung and missed on major star pursuits repeatedly now, from Kevin Durant years ago to Giannis more recently, and LeBron represented what's realistically their last real shot at building something new around an aging Steph Curry, who's now 38, heading toward 39. If they miss on both Anthony Davis and LeBron, it's a genuinely sad outcome for a player who's meant that much to the franchise and the league, watching a real championship window potentially close without one more real shot at it. That's a big part of why Washington believes they're holding so much leverage in these Davis conversations. They understand exactly what's riding on this for Golden State specifically. So where does that leave us? genuinely nowhere concrete. The odds have flipped at least 4 or 5 separate times over the past few weeks, each time based on evidence ranging from legitimate reporting to a literal fan video from a stoplight. Rich Paul and Shams have both been explicit that there's no real decision and no real timetable. Adam Silver is publicly asking for patience while his own league waits to build a schedule. And the one confirmed, verified development to come out of any of this actually involves Bronny's own roster situation, not his father's. So tell me, does any of this actually change your prediction at all? Or has this entire cycle just been noise stacked on top of more noise? Drop your genuine read in the comments, and let's see who's actually paying attention versus who's just reacting to the latest alert.